Hey, I get it, you're scrolling through a sea of gaming rigs, and the whole idea of splurging on a pre-built PC feels like a gamble. You picture yourself diving into the latest titles, but you also imagine the headache of a component that just doesn't click with the rest of your setup. That's why I want to walk through the GRI Computer's Vortex before you hit that Add to Cart button. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the Vortex is aimed squarely at gamers who want a high-end experience without the hassle of sourcing each part, testing BIOS tweaks, and hunting for the right cooling solution. If you've been building PCs for a while, you probably already know the strengths of the 12th Gen Intel Core i9-12900K and the RTX 4070. The Vortex stitches those pieces together in a ready-to-play package, and the promise is that you can plug it in, turn it on, and start gaming at 144 Hz or higher without fiddling with driver updates. That's a solid draw for people who want power but don't want to spend weeks tweaking. Now, who should actually consider this machine? If you play demanding AAA games like Cyberpunk 2077, Red Dead Redemption 2, or the latest Battlefield titles, you'll notice the difference right away. The RTX 4070 with its 12GB of GDDR6 lets you push ultra settings at 1440p and still hover around 100 frames per second. Pair that with the i9-12900K, and you'll see frame rates stay stable even when you enable ray tracing. The 32GB of DDR4 RAM is more than enough for multitasking, streaming on Twitch, having Discord chats open, and running a background record capture app all at once with almost no hiccup. If you're a content creator who also games, the 1TB NVMe SSD makes a noticeable impact. Loading worlds and open-world games drops to under half a second, and when you're editing 4K footage, the SSD's bandwidth helps move those massive files faster than a typical SATA drive. For me, the real test was launching a fresh install of Elden Ring, then jumping straight into a livestream. The transition was seamless, no stutter, no dreaded waiting for game to load screen that eats into your stream time. On the flip side, there are a few scenarios where the Vortex isn't the best fit. If you're a 1080 Ponly gamer who's happy with medium settings, you might be paying for performance you'll never actually use. The RTX 4070, while excellent, is overkill for a 1080p monitor that caps at 60 Hz. In that case, a lower-tier card could shave a few $100s off the price without hurting your experience. Also, if you already own a high-end monitor and peripherals, you'll need to make sure the case dimensions and port layout align with your desk setup. The Vortex comes in an i3 ARGB black case, which is spacious, but its front panel is all about airflow and doesn't hide cables behind a tempered glass panel. If a tidy aesthetic is a priority, you'll have to spend a bit of time cable managing. One hidden trade-off that shows up once the machine leaves the box is the cooling performance under prolonged load. The case is designed for high airflow, which means it pulls in a decent amount of dust over time. I ran a stress test on a friend's Vortex for 2 hours straight using a 4K benchmark, and the fans stayed relatively quiet, about 45 dB, but they didn't completely silence the room like a liquid-cooled system would. If you plan on gaming for marathon sessions, you'll want to schedule regular cleaning or consider adding a filter to the intake fans. It's not a deal-breaker, but it's a maintenance note that doesn't get shouted in the spec sheet. Another practical point is the Wi-Fi 6E module. If your gaming rig lives near the router, you'll appreciate the low latency and higher throughput compared to older Wi-Fi standards. However, if you already run a wired Ethernet connection, most serious gamers do, for the most consistent ping, then the Wi-Fi feature is just a nice extra you might never use. The Vortex also ships with Windows 11 pre-installed, which is fine for most users, but you'll want to make sure you're comfortable with the new Start menu layout and the widgets. It's a minor learning curve, but for someone who prefers the classic Windows 10 feel, you might spend a few minutes customizing the interface. The 1-year warranty feels standard, it covers the whole system, and GRI Computers says they stress test each unit before it ships. That gives a bit of peace of mind, especially if you're nervous about components failing out of the box. Overall, the value of the Vortex comes from the fact that you're getting a cohesive high-end gaming experience without having to become a hardware guru. The i9-12900K is a beast at single-core performance, which translates directly into smoother gameplay in titles that still rely heavily on CPU speed. The RTX 4070 handles modern graphics pipelines without choking, and the 32GB RAM ensures you never run into a memory bottleneck, even if you keep dozens of browser tabs open while gaming. The SSD's massive capacity means you can store multiple large games plus a